So my name is Maura Kennedy, and I'm the Director of the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspections. And I am joined here by my colleagues, David Green, who's the Assistant Director for Construction for PLI, and Corey Lehman, who's our colleague at the Department of City Planning, and he's a zoning administrator. So one of the main goals of One-Stop PGH is to present a single and unified front door for all development and economic activity happening here in Pittsburgh. Instead of having to figure out what department does a function, we want to have a single front door with clear rules and expectations on how to achieve your goal, whether it's opening a business, redeveloping a property, or curing a violation. So we're going to talk today about what we've done so far on this multi-year, multi-departmental process, and foreshadow some of the changes that are coming up in the next coming months. So again, the goals of this process are really to make the entire development process accountable, have clear rules. It should be a rigorous process to develop in Pittsburgh, but that's because our rules should have meaning, not because they're confusing to follow or complicated to figure out. Secondly, we want to be accountable. We want to publish clear guidelines and clear service level agreements where you'll be able to expect services from us in a timely manner. And then transparent. We have a website now where you can follow along with your process. You can see all the documentation we create, whether it's on the inspection side, the plan review side, any documents that are issued. And we also have other websites to follow along with the plan review and inspection process. So with that said, I'm going to kick it over to Dave Green, who will get into the meat of the presentation.
So just a brief overview of what we'll talk about today. First, process updates for both departments, some overview of the new one-stop system, improvements that we've made since we went live, and some general info and resources, and then some upcoming things to be on the lookout for. So just to remind folks, there are 4 phases to this project. The first phase was licensing. That's been live since earlier this year. Phase 2 is all of PLI's permitting, and phase 3, zoning development reviews. Both of those went live this summer. And then phase 4 will be remaining services. So PLI's enforcement, Bureau of Fire permits, DOMI permitting, and enforcement as well. And that's coming sometime in spring of next year. In terms of process, what's new? First and foremost, online services. So you can pay fees with a credit card or an e-check. You can apply for a license or renew a license. You can submit a zoning or PLI application. You can submit and we can review electronic drawings. Finally, we can provide you electronic copies of all the documents that we generate from the system. Applicants can also request inspections and receive notification of process updates throughout the life of an application. And the impact here is that we're offering more flexible service. So you can request one of these items, pay, renew a license, apply outside of our normal business hours, as well as not having to come in here. And I think it's a big win for all of us. Another big step is a common point of intake. So if you haven't submitted in hard copy format recently, we've combined our counters. So when you come in to make a new application, you'll go to the old PLI counter. Now the one-stop shop, we're accepting applications for PLI as well as zoning. There's a zoning specialist who helps to back up the counter, and it's really helped to coordinate the development process.
Yeah, and zoning still has counter hours from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. But there's on-call staff at the one-stop counter who is the primary staff to assist customers with zoning needs.
And then part of the online system is that it now identifies documents, when they're required, and the type of documents. So this creates a really transparent and consistent requirement for all of our application types. So for both departments, and I think this is also a really great improvement for everyone, so that you know what types of documents. Do you need a site plan? Do you need drawings? Do you need a report? Really good information before you get into the weeds. Also, in terms of coordination between the two departments, we've refined what requires a zoning review on a PLI permit. So previously, every building permit, you would go down to the zoning counter, application would start there, whether or not zoning would regulate that use or the work, and then come to PLI after you've been approved by zoning. Now, what we've done is really refine the types of work under construction that zoning would regulate and narrow that so that we can streamline the process and provide overall better service to everyone.
And with the new system, we have increased opportunity for concurrent review between DCP and PLI. There's still certain projects, larger developments, and projects with zoning board and planning commission approvals where you'll need to do your zoning process, and we offer the pre-application process ahead of time to help you start early. You can also start the pre-application online, but the system does allow for concurrent filing and reviews for the kind of the most common applications.
But also has system rules so that we do not release a permit prior to DCP approval. So making sure that while we're trying to shorten the overall time frame for reviews, that we don't miss important regulations. Also, with the new system, we can assign reviews based on application data that the applicant provides and our GIS data. So, for example, floodplain reviews on PLI permits, excuse me, instead of relying on individual in taking the application and recognizing it, the system will automatically flag the permit for a floodplain review. And this leads to stronger compliance with this ordinance and other ordinances. And for floodplain in particular, it's important if we recent improvement are that we have the potential to reduce floodplain insurance for city residents, and that's all based on us making sure we enforce that ordinance properly. So
this system allows us to keep FEMA happy.
Yeah. Another big improvement on the PLI front is we have a new clear definition of types of work, excuse me, that don't require construction drawings. These are minor alterations. And so this provides expedited services for people, excuse me, for a large permit volume, and also provides transparent understanding of the work.
It's such a big deal, it has Dave choked up.
Yeah. So, for example, you're replacing a roof, you no longer have to go through a review process, it's simply enforcement. Excuse me.
All right. So, this is yours.
Yeah, sorry. Bear with me. So in terms of SLAs, or when you can expect a review, for PLI, commercial structures, building, mechanical, fire alarm, suppression, demolition, and land operation, excuse me, you can expect a review in 30 days for an initial or 15 on. Thanks.
If you want to go to the next slide, I can do the zoning. So for the first time under this new system, zoning is able to track our SLAs, track our review times, and provide target SLAs for our reviews. This system is the change in the system and the change in the single point of entry is a big change for zoning and our staff. So the initial SLAs that we've put out are pretty broad targets because we don't have the data, and we haven't had the data to say, well, if this goes to this kind of, there's a lot of different types of reviews that would happen at zoning. So one project may go to the zoning board, one may go to planning commission, one may go to both, one may go, and sometimes there's community process. So it's a lot more complex and varied. And so what we're doing is finally being able to get the data and work toward accurate SLAs for review times. For now, these kind of initial SLAs are rough estimations based on staff capacity and the current level of intake that we got with the new system. And so the basic zoning review that is the most common application that we get is a 30-day review initially and 15 days for amendments, and then for the more complex reviews, 45 days is the rough SLA.
Corey, what's an SLA?
I'm sorry. I thought it was in here. Service level agreement. It's just our estimated time that we would from when we were able to respond and provide our service, and that's business days. Yep. Yeah, go back.
So just going back to PLI for 1 minute. So our SLAs, our service level agreement days in terms of response to the customer are still consistent with how they were prior to the launch of One-Stop. But just to reiterate them, for commercial structures and permits of all types, it's 30 days for initial reviews, 15 days for revisions. For residential structures and permit types of all times, 15 for initial, 8 for re-reviews. And then for other things like revisions, amendments, temp box, things like that, it's a 5 business day turnaround time. So again, these are for PLI maximum thresholds. We typically operate several business days in advance of this, but this is the absolute date certain by which you'll hear back from us. We have a 99.9% success rate in terms of meeting these deadlines, so you'll be able to plan your project around these timelines. And now back to Dave.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Another big change is we now require an application fee for all submissions to the One-Stop Shop, non-refundable. This creates an incentive to submit complete applications that are ready for review so that we can focus reviews on development-ready applications. Similarly, when you amend a permit, so make a change after the permit has been issued, there is a fee associated with that. Please note that through the One-Stop system, only the trade license holder can submit amendment. If you need to submit it and they can't, you can come to the One-Stop counter.
So the floodplain reviews, where there had been a separate floodplain permit, floodplain reviews, as the floodplain ordinance is within the zoning code, is under the ZDR, which is the zoning and development review application, and in some cases, a separate ZDR for floodplain review is required for each PLI application. I don't know, Dave, if you want to elaborate.
So generally, the rule is that for each application, we'll have a separate ZDR that ensures that we're meeting the overlay floodplain requirements as well as the building code requirements. The exception would be if you submit all related permits simultaneously. So what's the same? You can still come in to our counter and submit hard copy in person. Zoning and PLI still have separate applications to document our respective approvals. Excuse me.
Applicants need to satisfy both PLI and DCP requirements before a PLI permit can be issued.
And we're still reviewing for floodplain when the property is in a regulated floodplain. And all applications for exterior work associated with a historic property also still require historic review. Nothing's changed there, just stronger rules to make sure we get those reviews in. Now, You can also still contact your inspector directly if you don't have an online account. We also have posted to our website a list of all inspectors, their ward assignments, their types of permits, and their supervisors, their email addresses and phone numbers. Promora, or also go back once real quick. The other, while we've baked it into the system, what requires a construction drawing has not changed. It's just that it's baked into the system now. So previously, applicants could identify the type of work that we are now classifying as a minor alteration.
We would still have the same standards for what types of work require a site plan for zoning.
And PLI is maintenance certificates still require a certificate of occupancy to confirm that the sign was installed properly. And we continue to proactively inspect business licenses.
So the ZDR, or the Zoning and Development Review Application, is one single common DCP application, and that's both the paper ZDR, where there's now a residential and a commercial paper ZDR if you were going to file at the one-stop counter. But when you go into the online system to file online, you're looking for a ZDR. And that is for the majority of your development activity with under zoning and planning, it starts with that. You can also, other application types online would be to file a pre-application meeting, which we ask that you do for larger, more complex developments, and there's a separate filing for zoning map amendment, institutional master plan, that kind of thing.
Zoning use certifications.
Right. Oh, right, for property certs as well. For property certifications, which is probably a different audience, those can also be filed online. Oh, and the document that you get out, you probably for many, many years are familiar with getting a zoning voucher before you go to PLI. Is now called a ROSA, or a Record of Zoning Approval, which is similar to the voucher, but this is really your, effectively like your permit record that encapsulates your entire planning process for that development. For the scope of that application. And so in some ways it's sort of like our version of a C of O just for the planning, but it's also your kind of record of that approval.
And one of the new items in the system is a plan review summary report. If you submit drawings or documents through the One-Stop portal, the system will automatically generate a plan review document from the comments and markups that staff make, and it will summarize all those comments and corrections identified by the staff.
Question, is that for both zoning and PLI?
Yes. Another new feature, the system will generate an inspection report for each inspection that we record in the system. It's a summary document similar to the plan review, but for inspections. It will identify all inspection checklist items that the inspector has reviewed. It'll identify the individual outcome for each of those items, so either a pass, a fail, or not applicable, and then an overall outcome, which will generally be a pass, a partially pass for progress inspection, or a failed. And every time we record the overall outcome, that will be sent to the portal account for the trade license holder, and they can download that and provide it to the others. If you haven't been to the landing page here, One-Stop PGH, pittsburghpa.gov, this is where you go to register. You click on the left-hand portion of the screen in the center. If you clicked on Learn More, you'll be led to instructional videos. And then the bottom right-hand, you can search all applications and licenses. And just a screenshot, if you haven't created an account, this is what you would see. Below home, there's a series of menus. Currently, these are the types of things you can apply for. So if you wanted to apply for a license, a permit, or a planning application, you would click on one of those buttons, and then below, excuse me, are organized the things you've already applied for. So if you click on My Activities, it would give you a list of all the applications and licenses you've applied for. And then this can be confusing. If you receive a notification through the system that you need to take action, you would want to look for these warning icons, and those are the applications that require some action from you. And the warning will identify what you need to do or the process. So when it says revisions required, you need to resubmit your application to the appropriate department. If you need to finalize the application, there are fees and/or contractor assignments that need to be made.
Question, if you make a mistake, which is really easy to do right at this point, you end up creating a file for a project that may be incorrect, may be the wrong application or something like that, and it goes into the system, you can't delete it. Is there any way to fix that?
Once a record's created, the record will always be there. You can always change, if you haven't submitted it to us, you can just reuse that record for another future project, but once a record is created in the system, it generates a number and it lives there. If you happen to have submitted an error, you can withdraw it at any time, but that record will always be there.
It gets messy.
Yeah. Well, you can, there's nothing preventing you from reusing it for another project.
Why can't we just delete it?
System integrity,
If you
it's,
don't mind, if there's a big back and forth,
Sure.
we'll just wait all the questions for the end so we can get through the presentation. But the reason is so we can create an audit trail. That's a big part of this. So we can see exactly where every record is, who's touched it and where it's been. If you have records that you created in error, you're going to do another project. So just reuse that draft that you created erroneously for your next application. It can be amended if it hasn't been submitted yet.
and then new to the system, there's an organizational structure. On PLI's side, we've had the opportunity to also throw it on our website. You can go to that URL and it'll walk you through this in more depth. The first top level is the structure type. So is it a residential single family, a residential two-family, or a commercial all other uses? And then the next level is the type of work. So new construction, addition, alteration, or minor alteration. And then the next level below that is scope of work. And what this does in the system, you select a structure type, a work type, and then the system will filter and say, based on those, these are the type of work you can perform under those choices. On the back end, that is defining reviews that we perform, inspections that we will perform once the permit is issued, and documents as well. So it's very critical that you assign the appropriate types of structure, work type, and work scope. If you have questions, again, refer to the website. If you still have questions, you can call our general number and we'll try to guide you appropriately.
And the ZDR, some breaking news. As of yesterday, we have also implemented the similar scope structure to the ZDR where it had prior been just reliant on free-form text. And so for the same reason, it drives document requirements and it drives reviews that'll help us become more efficient in this system. The choices are commercial / mixed use / other, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4 plus residential and sign. If you have a mixed use building that has residential, you'd go to the top category. And then under type of work, there are choices, again, the change of use, commercial exterior alteration and renovation, demolition, floodplain permit only for new construction, record of zoning approval only. That would be for something like a parking pad or a fence that doesn't have a PLI permit associated with it, a fence less than 6 feet, and or 6 feet or less, and a residential exterior alteration and sign. And then the scope of work is then depending on your selection of the above 2 categories, it generates various scopes of work that relate directly to our reviews.
And then I don't think we'll go through all this in depth, but we will put this up on our website just to walk through some of the statuses that you might deal with through the application process. So at submission, if you look and you see your application says draft, that means you forgot to hit submit, or potentially it's a legacy permit that is waiting on a revision from the applicant to submit back to us.
A legacy permit meaning a permit that was initiated in the prior system, but that hasn't been issued.
Yep. And then if you see submitted status, it should be pretty brief. That's prior to us reviewing for completeness. So that should be maybe a day or 2 at most. In terms of the review process, if you see the status in review, that means that we have not completed your reviews yet. In some permit applications, you may have multiple zoning reviews. You may have a PLI review and a zoning review. So until all the reviews in the cycle that have been configured are done, it'll remain in that status. If you happen to catch us while we're reviewing it, and when you look, it will be in the perform review process. If we don't accept it, it will change the status applicant revisions, and that will require you to resubmit. If we accept it, it would go to the next process. And then,
does it generate an email anytime, like whatever email address you submit it under, it'll generate an email saying, hey, revisions requested?
well, we'll get to that a little bit more in depth later, but right now it's sending out an email notification whenever there's a process that requires you to respond. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's a little generic, so we have some improvements that we're working on to help clarify that.
Can we add multiple email addresses to whom it goes out?
Not at this time.
Okay, so you just have to add each company.
Yeah, you could add people to your account. That would give you, anyone you add to your account will have access to all your applications, though.
Okay, with one username.
No, you can. We have some instructional videos on our website. It would be labeled as setting up a contractor. You wouldn't actually enter the license, but it would allow you to add multiple users to access your applications. The caveat is they would be able to see all your applications.
This is a real problem for architects, especially small architects that have multiple projects with multidisciplinary teams. Your owner has to write a check for $10,000. Everything was much simpler. I know you're working towards getting a solution, but we need to have some way to create a business account. I'm trying to figure out how to do that by using different email addresses for my staff, because otherwise I can't review it. I have to go around my office with credit cards. Yeah, that's crazy.
We're working on, this is the reality of the system at the moment. We're continuing to improve as we go. One of the big changes on the permit issuance side is now the applicant will identify a contractor, and then through the system, the contractor will have to say, yes, I accept that work. And this is a way for us to verify that the contractor actually intends to do that. If for some reason one or either side does not have an online portal account, it can default to providing us the appropriate PLI application signed by the license holder and identifying their value of construction. In terms of inspections, please note there's some system changes. You can't request an inspection if there's a balance due on the permit. You can't request an inspection if your license is expired or your insurance is expired. In terms of performing an inspection, same thing. Our inspectors cannot record an inspection in the system, or if there's a balance due or if there's an issue with the license. And then to reiterate, in terms of submitting an amendment online, that's only going to be available currently to the license holder.
So when you mean, sorry, you mean that, so, for example, as the architect, we submit the entire building permit process through the online portal. I can see it, the permit's been issued, assigned to a licensed contractor, general contractor.
Mm-hmm.
We need to submit amended drawings because of whatever reason. My contractor has to submit those drawings?
The primary responsibility within the system switches to the license holder at the time of issuance. So if you wanted to submit electronically, you would have to ask your license holder to do so through their account.
Log into their
Yep.
and they update the drawing. Or we could print them and come down here
Yes.
and do it.
Does it give you the option to request off-hours inspections?
Yes. Or what we refer to as overtime inspections.
Okay.
Yep. Completion, there's also some system controls. We can't record a past building permit submission or inspection if the related subpermits are still open. We are still performing an administrative review to ensure that all permit requirements are met. And then if there is a certificate included with the application, there is an administrative review and a manual process to generate the certificate, which will be exposed to the portal account once it's been generated. And we are also internally, as we generate the new certificates, uploading them to the searchable database that we have on our website.
Can you request inspections and COs for legacy permits in this process?
You, if they're in the right status, you can. You may need to work with One-Stop staff to connect you appropriately to the accounts. Some of the legacy permits, the functionality needs a little bit of help to connect it, but if it's in issued status, the license is valid, you should be able to access it and request inspections. You should also be able to see the certificate if it's included in that application once the permit's completed.
When ZDR and a PLI permit are related, which as they should be for related work, then the PLI permit can't be issued until the ZDR is issued, until the ROSA is issued.
And this is our way of making sure that PLI doesn't release something prior to zoning approval. Similarly, PLI subpermit can't be issued until the building permit is issued. And as I mentioned earlier, if there's a non-compliant license, the system will prevent assigning the trade license to a permit prior to issuance, prevent permit issuance, and then prevent requesting, scheduling, and/or performing inspections until the license is updated to be compliant. On PLI permits, some other controls during the inspection process. It will prevent a permit holder from requesting inspections that are out of sequence. So we're not going to allow you to request a final inspection before you have a framing inspection. Similarly, there are lead times built in to our business practices. Standard is 5 business days lead time to schedule a standard during normal hours inspection, and then 2 business days for an overtime inspection. And then one other last control. Similarly, while we can't record a final inspection, you can't request a final inspection if the related subpermits are still open, and we can't record it. In terms of improvements, since we went live, we've had 10 service releases since May 28th, all pretty significant. And a recent one, or actually not super recent, we refined, we've been continuing to refine what requires a zoning review. One of the biggest ones is that a minor alteration for a single-family house or two-family house would only require a zoning review if it's in a historic district or in a floodplain.
As we said before, we added the structure and work type, the scope of work selection to the ZDR. We've refined when and what type of documents are required for ZDR. And that's you.
Yeah. And then we've also refined inspections based on structure type of work, and scope of work to be more appropriate to the work being performed. And I think a couple big things. We've coordinated a list between both DCP and PLI, work that does not require a ZDR or a PLI permit, and then work that only requires a ZDR, and work that requires both. So previously we had our own separate lists. You would have to find whatever version each one of us had and try to compare what do I need to apply for, and now it's very transparent. Also, flew by real quick, but we're getting more timely and accurate address, parcel, and owner data from Allegheny County, which ensures that previously, sometimes this could be maybe a couple times a year, updates. We're now getting very regularly owner updates and address updates. So this should hopefully cause less hiccups and provide for more accurate documentation of this information on the documents we produce.
Just to talk about some of the metrics that we're seeing with the adoption of the One-Stop PGH. So one exciting thing is now we can actually track all of our metrics in much better real-time reporting. Previously, it was a very timely and frankly inaccurate process to report out on things. So we went live with online submissions in mid-June, and we're happy to say that we're seeing a significant adoption rate. About 30% currently of all applications that have been made for PLI permits, sorry, can you go back? That have been made since we went live have been done online, and we've been seeing that. That's the next slide. We've been seeing it, if you want to hop over real quick, we've been seeing that tick up over time. So we're really excited that people are adopting the system, finding it useful. And as Dave said, we've gone through 10 releases of the product, and we're continuing to improve it with feedback from our customers and pain points that we're experiencing. So if you encountered an error, particularly in the early days, please try again. We've been implementing a lot of fixes. So thank you. If you go back for one more minute. Something not to brag on behalf of DCP, but they've had an awesome adoption rate. So, they're really in the lead here. Yeah, exactly. With, 43% of all submissions being done online, which is terrific. And just to go forward, something that we're really excited to see is that almost 40% of all transactions online are being completed outside of PLI business hours and One-Stop PGH business hours. So we're excited to be able to serve our customers at the time that they want to access our services, instead of making people have to take off from their busy lives to come down to the counter and complete a transaction. So you can do it at home, nights, weekends, holidays, whatever works for you. So you can see the adoption rate. Something that I also want to call out, we've seen a little bit slower adoption of this, but you can request inspections online. You can select the type of inspection you want and select a date. That will go to the inspector, and he or she will respond to you to say, great, that time and date works, or if not, they'll suggest a time that does work for him or her. So, I really encourage people to do that online. You can also request off-hour inspections, overtime inspections, and also pay for those online as well.
It still needs to be 5 days in advance.
For regular,
Okay.
overtime is 2, regular hours is 5. And we're also seeing really significant user adoption registration. So December of last year, when we started going live, we had about 120 applicants, and now we're well over several thousand in terms of registered users in our system. So that's great. we're doing more than 60% of all business licenses online. Yeah.
Inspector comes, notes one minor thing, they need to come back and look at it. You still need to
Correct.
wait 5 more days, or can you request an expedited return like the following day?
No, so it's always 5 days. And you'll also be able to see that inspection record online. And that's a great thing. You know, this is a main point of confusion. You know, the sub's calling me, you know, the electrician said this job is done. You know, that's a great way for everyone to keep the job accountable. Say, hey, when you have that completed inspection, give me the inspection report. It's a PDF document. You can download it. You can email it around. And it's the true record of what we have found.
Is that only downloadable to the licensed trade license holder, like the contractor's one-stop account? Or if, say, again, as the architect, we set up a permit application, will those be listed, those inspection reports be listed for us to view?
So if you're not the permit holder, you would not be able to access the permit records at that time. So you would have to ask the permit holder to provide those records to you.
Is that something you can predict? Because that's really important to our profession. So our liability.
Yeah. At this time, no. I appreciate that, but you can just say, hey, I see, so the date that the inspections happened is transparent on Building Eye, so you can set up an email alert to say, please let me know anytime there's an action on this property. Then you can say to your GC or your subs, hey, I saw you got an inspection yesterday. Send me the permit record. So that is all something you can track in real time and audit.
But the architect can still create the application and get to help expedite the reviews, right? And it's just when the contractor, electrician, whoever picks up the permit, they then take over.
Absolutely. So the Pennsylvania Uniform Construction Code makes clear who is the permit holder and who is legally allowed to access all of these records. So we follow the state code regarding who the permit holder is. So if you are not the permit holder, at the time that the permit becomes issued to the permit holder, only the permit holder is legally able to access these records. If they wish to share them with you, they're obviously able to do so, but that is how the state law is set up.
So the architect of record, even though we have responsibility for that project.
To clarify, you should
Yep.
actually be able to see what inspection was recorded and the overall outcome.
Correct.
You will not get the
On
itemized.
you mean?
No, on your, if you're associated with it, you are the applicant, you should be able to still see overall process of the project.
Right.
You would just not have access to the inspection report because that's a private document.
But we would know that the electrician didn't do his job, for example.
Yet you would be able to see, no, there's been no inspections recorded.
Yeah, you'd be able to see, has there been an inspection done? Is it a pass, is it a fail? But the,
Call them up.
correct, and but the permit record will actually say, here is the precise code deficiency. This is the section of the code that you failed to comply with, and here is the cure that we're looking to see. Yes, ma'am.
Forgive me if this was already mentioned, but is there like a system set up to be able to, I guess, give feedback on what you're experiencing?
Yes, so stay tuned in a couple slides. Thank you for queuing this up. We'll get into that in just 1 minute. So just going to the next slide here, just to keep running through this. We're also really excited to see that people are making the shift from physical paper checks to credit cards and e-checks. Just to put in a plug for e-checks, credit card payment is a percentage of the overall permit fee, and I understand that if the permit fee is significant, that percentage can actually be meaningful. We also accept e-checks, which is a 50-cent service charge. So both are available to be done online. So I'm going to talk about some tricks. So these are some pain points that we're seeing our customers experience. When you submit a resubmission, press submit. You can't just upload the documents. You have to actually press the submit button.
Actually, also for application, people are also doing that. So.
Yes, exactly. It's not enough just to upload the documents and fill out the forms. You actually have to press the submit button. And you'll actually be able to get a notice. You'll be able to see your status change from draft to in-application status. So check to make sure that that has happened.
And a lot of other
Yeah.
systems, I'm thinking about some of the state systems I've seen, they give you that option because you're trying to collaborate with a bunch of
Yeah.
disciplines, and you want to get everything uploaded before you press that button, right? And that's where we need that access. So if I have my civil engineer that's working on stormwater, something like that, then I can share that site with him, and I know that he's done his homework, and then I can press the send button as the architect of record. That's
Sure.
what I'm missing.
So as Dave articulated, you can add users to your account. I think that that's a persistent question, so we'll send out that video with a highlight in the newsletter, so you can do so. So, yep, so also just to call out, this is not a new change with the system, but anyone authorized by the property owner can apply for a permit. You don't have to be a registered electrician to apply for an electrical permit. So you can submit all of your permit applications all at one time. The trade license holder is not needed to be identified until time of issuance. So you can go through the permitting approval process while you're bidding out your job. Also, as Corey was talking about, you can submit PLI and related ZDR records concurrently, and that's a really expanded product that we're offering. And then, again, if you don't have all your plan sets ready to go at one time, you're still welcome to do them in a more of an ad hoc fashion, whatever works best for you. Please note that we won't issue any of the sub-permits until the base building permit's been issued.
Can you clarify the relationship to PWSA, Engineering, Public Works, and DOMI? Because it's not clear to us whether that holds up the release of a permit. Say PWSA, we're waiting for ages for the permit comments to get back, and the project's ready to go. What happens there?
So generally, it depends on what type of job you're doing, how we interact. I'll let Dave talk about it in a little bit more detail, but it's one of those it depends answers.
Yep. Of course. So generally speaking, we're not holding permits for PWSA, except for a couple. If you're doing an underground fire main installation, we are waiting for their approved tap-in plan prior to us releasing a permit to ensure that they, as the utility, have approved that configuration.
So does that show up electronically?
No. Right now, PWSA does not have an interconnection. We are working generally, we're meeting more regularly, and there's been talks about how these other agencies can fit in. In the very least, we have had talks about when we relocate that they would have a presence at the new one-stop shop in the new building. In terms of DOMI, it also depends. So
To that, right now, as was before, a lot of the coordination on development projects with DOMI would happen throughout the planning and zoning process. So those links are still there. But we actually have some DOMI users in the system being able to do their reviews or record their reviews and approvals on our permits within the flow. So, for example, curb cuts. Now you'd still go down to 611 and file your curb cut application, but you don't have to get it stamped at our office, walk it down, get it stamped there, walk it back. It's all happening within the system, and Bobby and the other DOMI staff have the ability to record their approval in the system without us having to have a paper walking back and forth between buildings.
Just to follow up on the PWSA thing, it's still a little confusing to me. So we have a project right now that everything's ready to go. We're waiting for PWSA. We got the comments back. And somebody told me, my engineer said, oh, you just need a letter from them saying that it's in the process. Because it could be 6 months before.
Sure. So again, the fire main tap, and then the other outlier is the land operations permit. So we're looking for documentation that they're okay for us to release the permit. You may have other permits through them in terms of modification of the systems they regulate, but their role in the review on the land operations is to make sure that you're aware of any infrastructure they may have on site and that you don't impact it adversely. So on our end, the new form has a place for them to just physically sign an approval. We can also take a letter from them, but we're going to defer to them to say, yes, it's appropriate to release this permit.
If your two agencies take care of that, I don't have to go to them and say, could you please send a letter
No.
to us? Okay.
Just like anything else in the system, if it's a requirement of the permit, it is the responsibility of the applicant to demonstrate compliance and provide that
So I should
document.
upload it.
Rob, sorry, happy to talk with you about the specific project offline. I agree, but I just want to get through the entirety of the presentation before the hour ends so we can be respectful of people's time. So great, yes, we're happy to accept applications simultaneously. They'll be routed to a single PLI reviewer, which is better for you and better for us. But if you are not ready to go with all of your package at one time, we're happy to accept it in a different order. So again, we're also happy to accept phase applications if you want to do core and shell or tenant fit outs or however you wish to phase a work, also happy to do that. So documents can be uploaded when the status is in review, but this is important. The formal submission cycle is held until both PLI and DCP have completed their review on that round. So the reason behind this is version control. So if you submit a set of documents, it's important to have both PLI and DCP be looking at the same set of documents and offering a single set of comments on that. And then you submit a new round of documents that address both of those issues, and then we respond again. So we don't want to be having, that was one of the issues with the previous, how we did simultaneous reviews, where we were looking at different sets of documents, perhaps offering conflicting advice, or you would make a change that would then have a unintended impact on the other code. So again, we want to have version control where we're both looking at one set of documents and going through that. So, but this is important until you have received review comments from both PLI and DCP. You can't resubmit and put it back into the queue.
The status at that point would be applicant revisions.
Absolutely. And again, we've talked about this. If there's exterior work or if it's in a floodplain, a zoning review and a ZDR will be required. And if there's exterior work in historic district, it will require historic review. Okay, so some exciting things that are coming soon. So we have launched QMinder, which is our line management system. When you come to the one-stop counter, you're able to sign up, put your name in line, and it will estimate for you the wait time. And you can go get a cup of coffee. You can stand in line if you wish, depending on how long the wait is. And it will actually text you with an alert when we anticipate you're 3 to 5 minutes away from being served, so you can come back. It also gives us a lot of great metrics on what types of customers are coming to our counter, how long we take to serve them, and how long on average they wait. So we've been running it for about 2 weeks right now, and it's really interesting to see the seasonality in our wait. If you come basically anytime but between 12 and 2, the wait's 7 minutes. And if you come between 12 and 2, the wait's about 35 minutes. So, it's interesting to see. And we're hoping to better drive customers to slower parts of the day. This is what Dave talked about. When we take actions on your permits or your licenses and it's now waiting customer action, we send you an email. But it doesn't have a lot of great descriptive information about what the license or permit is and what the action is that you're required to take next. So we have an enhancement request in, hoping to add that type of information. If you're doing a lot of projects, we understand it can get confusing. And then we are also launching a One-Stop PGH customer survey. So this will be going in all of our One-Stop PGH communications, so all of those one-stop emails will be on our website, it'll be on our newsletter, and we're looking to hear back from customers. What is working, what's not, what parts of the product do you like, what parts should we focus next on improving, and keep going forward from there. And then finally, we're going to be incorporating DOMI and FIRE into the product. So it will help align some of those concurrent reviews and online review issues. You can apply for your curb cuts, your traffic plans, things like that online as well, and manage those permits through the process. And also for FIRE, hot works, things like that will be done online. Okay, more exciting things that are coming next. We're going to be launching permitting rules and regs. So we have previously launched these for licensing, and it was really helpful. It's a plain English explanation of all of our processes and procedures that you can reference in a handy sheet that talks through the application process, the inspection process, what types of documentation we're looking for, any penalties we might assess, and really lay it out in a clear English navigable way. That's the goal. We're also looking to publish inspection checklists. Right now we publish plan review checklists to again make it very clear what are we looking for when we go out and inspect a certain type of work. We're also going to be updating our plan review checklists. As you know, the codes have changed recently, so we're looking to update those and publish them. And we're still looking to make some changes to Title 10. So that would be a joint city-state process to make some amendments there, again, to address some of the new issues we're experiencing with the 15 codes, and also clarify some other processes in Pittsburgh here. And then very excitingly, we are going to be moving to 412 Boulevard of the Allies in the next year or so. So that will allow us to have a really customer-friendly, physical one-stop shop location for the entire development process. You'll be able to physically apply for DOMI, fire, PLI, DCP permits there. And as Dave mentioned, we're also looking to have representation from other parts of the development process. So the county plumbing department, PWSA, agencies like that. Okay, just wanted to call out a couple online resources we have. We have instructional videos, which are terrific. So for a lot of these process questions people have been asking about how to use a product, we actually have a YouTube channel, and it will walk you through step-by-step, like how to add another user to your account and things like that.
There's also handouts in the back that should have
thank you.
most of these, not all, on them, so you can take one on the way out.
Is this presentation going to be made available?
Absolutely. And there's also physical hard copies of it as well.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. We have Building Eye, which is a tremendous product. All of PLI's permits, licenses, and inspections, including violations, are accessible and searchable one day after they were completed. So any action taken today will show up online tomorrow. You can also set alerts for properties. So say if you're an architect on a job site, you can say, give me an alert on anything that happens on 200 Ross Street. So anytime there's a permit applied for, an inspection completed, a license issued there, it will actually proactively email you so you don't have to keep checking back.
We're coming soon with the
yes.
zoning. We're working with Building Eye because we have so many different review types and complexity within our permits. That's taking a little bit of time to make sure we get it right before we push it out live.
We also have a One-Stop PGH. It actually has a searchable database too. So say if you're interested in expired licenses or lapsed licenses, you're able to search that type of information on this search. And then finally, we have a newsletter. So anytime we launch a new change or are soliciting feedback, we do that through our customer service newsletter. And that is now the One-Stop PGH newsletter that talks about changes and improvements from both city planning and PLI.
And there's also, so we meant to have the link for zoning's website on this presentation, but it is on that really awesome pamphlet that's there in the back. So please grab one of those.
Absolutely. We still have the pending permits list, which is where you can track where you are in the PLI plan review queue. We update that every morning, still on our website. As Dave said, we further clarified the work not requiring a permit information. We have the occupancy search online, so every single occupancy permit that the city of Pittsburgh has ever issued is scanned and searchable online. We have a fee calculator. We changed our fee schedule back in May, and this fee calculator you now can use to calculate the expected cost of your permit or license. And we also have all the zoning maps online, so you can see what zoning district you're in and other types of zoning criteria.
Yeah, you can drill into all the various layers, steep slope and landslide prone and all of those fun things. Yes.
Regarding the fee calculator.
Yeah.
Is it on the website? Is it clear what work, the cost of what work isn't included in Because I think there's been some
Yeah.
confusion on our end, like what's in and what's out in terms of the cost of the work and how the permit fee is calculated.
Sure, that is made clear on the website, and that actually hasn't changed either. So the cost of any finishes isn't included, so like carpeting or paint, things like that. And also, we're looking for only the cost of that permit, the work included under that permit.
So mechanical, electrical, sprinkler, that's allowed as a building permit. 'Cause
Correct. It would only be the base building functions.
And then basically all finishes, casework, countertop, window shade, it's just the structure and drywall, that's,
Correct. So it's only the things that we regulate.
gotcha. Thank you.
No problem. Great. So that is the end of our presentation. Happy to take more questions if people have them. Again, this will all be online. This will also be posted on our YouTube channel and the government access cable channel. And we'll be sending out links to everything we referenced via our newsletter.